So what's up, guys? So today's video is going to be a little bit different because I really don't have much of any project updates for you guys. And in fact, yesterday, when I normally do my filming for my Wednesday videos, I was completely demotivated and I just didn't feel like filming. I did manage to get some work done, but you know, not every day do you feel like you just want to put yourself in front of the camera. But I regrouped last night and sort of tried to come up with a little bit of a strategy so we could come up with a video for today. And you might be wondering, well, what demotivated you? It was a number of things. Life gets in the way. And the main thing was, though, is I missed out on a really good opportunity to purchase a car. It wasn't a Foxbody. Long story short, the guy sold it out from under me, and it just kind of set the tone and set the mood for the day, which ultimately wasn't a very positive one. So somebody in the last video about Lemon Drop, when I was stripping this thing down, mentioned timelines and what does it actually take in terms of, you know, timing, how long do I spend on projects, putting them together, so on and so forth. And while I figured I would focus a little bit on that and overall project anxiety, because believe it or not, even after all of these years of building cars, I still get a little bit of anxiety when I am doing a project. So you can see the car is even more stripped now than the way that I left it in the video. And the reality is I probably have an extra full day in terms of just getting the little nitty-gritty stuff out. You know, there was a few things that I was fighting with. You know, I couldn't get the body wiring harness out because the rear seat belt, one of those Torx bolts, it just wouldn't come loose. So needed to torch that and heat that up. There was one of the sway bar bolts that was stripped up in the front and the mount up here. That needed to get torched. And then I wanted to put, you know, a crummy steering column in the car because the wheel and everything from this interior is in really good shape. So in terms of timelines for this car, probably got about 3 full days into it just for what you see here. And that's where the anxiety is going to set in. But going back to the timelines, it took probably 1 full day in terms of stripping all the driveline out and the stuff in the engine bay and all of that, which was one video. Then the second video, you know, we removed all the big ticket items, the rest of the interior, the doors, the fenders, the trunk, bumpers, all of those things. And then the last day was things like getting the heater box out, getting all of the stuck nuts and bolts. The last little things, you know, I was masking off all the VIN stickers on the body panels because, you know, when the body work gets done, the last thing that I want is for the VIN numbers to get oversprayed. I want all of those VIN tags to be present, and maybe that's just a little bit of a tip for you guys before you go to the body shop, is to mask them all off. And I did it on all the panels. So on the insides of the fenders and the doors, you can see down there, you know, the one on the underside of the hood, the front bumper cover, they're all masked off. And make sure you tell your body shop, you know, don't take that masking tape off, or if, you know, just from sanding and stuff and it starts peeling the tape back, make sure that they tape them back and tape them properly. So that's where the car is now left off. So originally I was thinking about tackling a lot of this stuff myself, but I have a number of other projects coming up and I am eager to get down to my shop in Texas, hopefully in the spring. So I got to be conscious in terms of time and how much energy I'm putting into certain projects, because this isn't a light or an easy project. There's a lot of work involved here in terms of making sure that this rust is cut out and fixed properly, and to get this detch kit put on and everything else. So I spoke with my painter Boogie the other day, the same one who's doing the Detch number 5 car, and he said that when I go to pick up that car, I can drop this one off. So I'm going to go up tomorrow and I need to drop off some tail lights and some window trim and stuff just to make sure that everything is lining up, because one of the rear quarter panels was changed. You know, the hatch was off and he wants to make sure that everything is lining up and looking the way that it should before he goes ahead and sprays the car finally for good. So that's going to be an update video that I'm super excited to share with you guys. And so stay tuned for that one. And if you haven't seen the Detch number 5 videos, make sure that you check those ones out. So going back to anxiety, you strip the car all down and you're sitting here and you're looking at not very much. So you've already invested a whole bunch of time, a whole bunch of efforts. You've maybe uncovered some things that you weren't planning to uncover, and you're like, holy shit, what did I get myself into? So this is where you kind of need to take a deep breath and think about the bigger picture, because this can be overwhelming, and not just to the average individual who's trying to do this for the first time, but even for someone like me who has done this a countless amount of times. So it's sort of like building a new house, and you have to think there's pros and cons, because in your mind you're like, man, should I have just bought one that's already done that I don't have to worry about? Well, you can buy a car that's done, but maybe it's not the color you wanted, maybe it doesn't have the mods that you want, and maybe you just end up building it anyways. But in this case, I get to pick and choose everything that I want. And this is going back to, for the few people that said, you know what, don't touch it, keep it original. This car's too far gone. And I'm gonna be in for quite a bit of money to get the paint and body right. And by the time you just put that price tag on this car, I could go out and buy one that didn't have any rust on it and is in really good shape. You can pick up these feature cars for anywhere between 10 and 20 grand that don't have rust on them, because, well, they're not exactly for everybody. And when you're building a car, depending if it's for resale or what you want to do with it, you have to keep that in mind. And by having a yellow Mustang, you've probably cut out 90% of your potential resale value. And the fact that I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to put a Detch kit on it, and I'm going to put the Jaguar door handles in the doors, and who knows what else I'm going to do. I'm probably going to cut out 99% of instant resale value out of this car. It's not going to be just a black notchback, which are easy to find, plentiful, and you can always sell them off quick. Speaking of which, I have a black notchback coming up here shortly, so be sure to stay tuned for that video as well. But going back to this project, and you're sitting here and you're looking at the rust and you're thinking about the time, and I haven't even spoken about budget. Budget is a huge factor when you're going into a build, and especially if you start uncovering things that you didn't plan for, or you're like, I'm already here, I might as well go ahead and upgrade it now, which is a really good thing to do in a lot of cases. So with the budget, it's a tricky thing, because we know that not everybody has the budget to be able to do everything that they want on their wish list. And a lot of people say money is the root of all evil. It's actually the lack of money is the root of all evil. I had a colleague that I worked with, and he said that once, and it just resonated with me. It's amazing what people will do with the lack of money. Having a bunch of money, kind of makes life a little bit easier, but that's my opinion. So going back to the project and looking at all this stuff on the ground, and it was even, it took up this whole section of the shop here, all the way along the side here. I did a lot of cleanup. The back of this box here is now filled with all of the interior, the wiring, everything else of the car. And this now going back into timelines. This sitting here for a month or maybe even 2 months while the car's in the body shop, no big deal. But for a lot of people, they're building cars part-time, and sometimes things are going to be sitting around for a really long time. And that's where it's important to ask yourself about a project Foxbody or a project car in general, and is it really for you? Which I did that video last summer. So if you haven't checked that out, be sure to have a look, because a project is a big task, and there's nothing worse than if you got anxiety and you're feeling overwhelmed about what doesn't even really look like a car anymore, sitting off in the corner, and then you have to work on it part-time. So working on your car part-time is a challenge. So having good project momentum is key whenever you're working on something, automotive or not, or like you're building that house that I used the analogy of before, is starting and stopping and then trying to remember where you left off and getting back into the project can have its challenges. It's not saying it's impossible, just saying that if you can phase your project into big ticket items and get a lot done, even if you're using a little bit of your holidays or a long weekend, so that you can start something from start to finish. So if it's just body work, or if it's just metal work, or if it's just the interior, or if it's working on your drivetrain and your motor, you should really come up with a schedule of tasks and try and avoid just the, hour here, hour there if you can. Not saying that you shouldn't do that. There are tasks that you can do in the hour or the 2 hours, whether you're cleaning up loom on your wiring harness or you're maybe working on painting some trim. But if you're trying to assemble your engine, or you're trying to put some window regulators back in the doors, or do some heavy items like that, make sure you give yourself enough time where you really feel like you can start and finish that process. And I'll be walking you guys through it as this car progresses along. And again, same thing. So now this car is ready. I've stripped pretty much everything off it. Not everything is stripped because, well, there's still a K-member, there's still a diff in it. It is a roller at the end of the day, but from the body shop perspective, this is going to cut down a lot of the work that they would normally have to worry about. They can just get at it and start getting stuff done. So I'm hoping the turnaround on this car is going to be pretty quick, and then that'll allow us to work on the assembly of it. So when you're looking at this and you guys are watching the video, maybe it's some really good insight to ask yourselves, is this something I want to get myself into? And if it's not, that's okay. There's people like me that love and live for this stuff and are more than happy to help if you're looking for it. Otherwise, maybe buying a car that's done, that ticks all the boxes that you're looking for, is another route that you can go. But the reality is the Fox bodies are getting older and older, and having some rust and corrosion or previous gremlins in the cars are things that you're going to come across more and more as time goes on. So looking at this thing, and I spent 30 minutes yesterday, even though I wasn't in the greatest mood, just kind of looking at it and thinking of the mods I want to do, the color, what pieces of trim I want to paint, which colors, how do I want that kit to be installed. I've done a couple Dutch kit videos now, of them not being molded in. Do I want to go for the molded in look and try and clean everything up? I was even thinking about, do I want to try and do something with the door moldings? So many guys, and it's a huge pet peeve of mine, where the door moldings are left off the car, and then all of a sudden you look at the front or the rear of the car and the molding is magically there on the bumpers. Now, I get it, the moldings are integrated into the bumpers, so there's not much that you can do here. Like, unless you cut this section out and try and recess it in, or you mold this flush with some 2-part epoxy, or I don't know. I was trying to think up some cool ideas that I could potentially do. Some of you guys are probably cringing right now, but the infamous project is about doing custom stuff. So we'll see what I ultimately end up decide on doing. Sometimes it's good to dream big, and then you think about, how challenging is that going to be, or is it going to look good? What's the longevity? All of those things. And then sometimes you scale those dreams back, which, is okay, but you always got to think big. And if you're trying to think up here, even though maybe your reality is down here, or maybe you can find a balance in between, don't settle. Try and push your limits, push the bar, try and go above your comfort zone and take a little bit of risk, because that's what building a project is all about. So in my case, I got to be smart about the decisions that I make. And even though that I'm not going to be appealing to 99% of the Foxbody population, I am relying on that 1% that will potentially like this car, and that somebody is going to end up picking this up, because I don't think I'm going to keep this one. The idea of this build was originally for Foxbody 2020. Wanted to cruise it down there, use it kind of like a promo video, and hopefully somebody would really like it and pick it up off me. So the car is going to be for sale at the end of the day. I do want to enjoy it a little bit in 2021, but if somebody comes along in that 1% bracket and takes it, then so be it. So that's sort of what the infamous project is about. I like doing my own custom builds. I like using my creativity and creating something that not everybody might like. Hopefully some of you guys will respect. I know a lot of you guys aren't about the body kits and everything else, but there's a place for everybody. And that is one important thing with your project. You want to make sure that if you are in it for resale and for business, just be careful with some of the decisions that you make, because you might have a limited market. And that's why some of the cars that I flip, the black notches, for instance, those are the ones that you need to make sure you're making some money, because if you're not making some money, well then I probably wouldn't be making these videos right now, because it wouldn't be very smart business, right? So be conscious of that with your projects, guys. Ultimately, what do you want to do? Are you prepared to potentially lose money if you need to sell the car in the end? Do you want to try and make a couple bucks? So you need to factor those things into your project and the route that you want to go in terms of making sure that the resale is where you want it to be if you're not planning to hold on to your project forever. So there you have it, guys. A little bit more of my own personal opinion on things and giving you an ultimate update on the projects, but those updates are soon coming. So hopefully this video has given you guys a little bit peace of mind, knowing that we all get anxious when we have a project and we're just looking at not very much and it's hard to see the horizon. But let me tell you, once this car is even just in primer and things are cleaned up and it starts looking like a car again, the amount of motivation that you will get and the excitement that you will have will help push you towards that finish line. And ultimately what you don't want is you don't want to get into this stage and get so scared that you just run away from it, and then you start selling stuff off and maybe you're losing money. Don't not finish your projects if you don't have to. If you need help, reach out to your friends, watch some YouTube videos, any of those things that can help get you some motivation, some inspiration. Block off time. It's so easy to get demotivated sometimes. Sometimes you just need to step away, grab a breath of fresh air, because you don't want to end up hating your project or hating your car, just like those marriages that sometimes end up in divorce when you're building a new home, so on and so forth. Those are the horror stories that you don't want to happen to you. So phase out your project, say I'm going to work on this, then I'm going to work on that, and do whatever it takes to make yourself feel comfortable, to motivate yourself. Call up some friends, have them come over and help you out, even if they're just there supporting you and drinking some beer with you while you're doing some tasks. Those are all things that help at the end of the day and will get you through your project. So that's where things are at. And remember, when something's stripped down that far, this is like the low point, right? It can only get better from here. So I hope that these words of advice help for some of you guys out there that are thinking about tackling a Foxbody project, or maybe you are, just as far deep as I am right now into a Foxbody project. So just remember that there's light on the other side of the tunnel. Now, if for some reason you guys are in a situation where you don't have the money or you don't have the time and the car is just sitting there, well, you're going to have a hard decision to make, to ask yourself, what is the reality and what do you want? Because nothing is worse than if this project, I had this stripped down and it was just sitting for 1 year, 2 years, and you keep saying you're going to get to it. And a lot of people have these cars saying, I'm going to restore it, I'm going to get to it. And 5 years goes by, 10 years goes by, all of a sudden you realize you're getting old, you still don't have your car on the road, and maybe even your tastes have changed at that point. Maybe you're just trying to chase a dream that's no longer relevant in your life. At that point, maybe it's time to let her go, and let her go to a home that someone can appreciate her and get her all fixed up. So one project that I don't know I'm going to do a video on, and if you guys have been hanging around this long towards the end of the video, you can notice that up on the lift here is my dad's 58 Corvette, and that is something that he's owned since I think about 1972, and it's been painted and pretty much ready for assembly for quite some time now. With me being overseas and my dad living about 5 hours away from here, it's been hard as a father-son project to be able to make any headway on that. So he's going to be down all of next week, and we're going to be in assembly mode trying to see how much headway we can make with that thing. If you guys are interested in 58 Corvette project, I know it's not Foxbody related, but hey, it's a classic, it's cool. Let me know if you think I should put some videos out on that one. I'll do a different playlist for it. But I'm really excited for that one. So, you know, some of these cars are business related cars that, you know, I'm trying to make a little bit of money on. Some of these cars are personal ones and some of them are emotional. So that's definitely up in the emotional category. So stay tuned for that one. But hopefully you guys have found this video informative, and thank you again for following along. If you've stuck around to the end, then kudos. So we'll see you guys next time.